When Bill Clinton met Loretta Lynch on the tarmac, did they only talk about their grandkids? Now, there's no fly on the wall. There's nothing that we have unless we can kind of remote view into that particular area and listen to what they were saying. We have to take their word for it. But rational human being that knows that his wife could potentially be perp walked, do you only talk about your grandkids? And let's say, for the moment, give him the benefit of the doubt. Is the message the meeting in and of itself? Meaning the very fact that I'm here with you right now, at this very moment, in the flesh, I don't have to say squat about my wife being perp walked. You already know. Why else would I be here? Meaning the very fact that he was there, in and of itself, could be the message. Or he says something to her. Either way, I don't believe for one moment that the only thing that was communicated was about those grandkids. Donald Trump has a conversation with one of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, one of the Republicans that were deadlocked. Now, just to give a little backstory on this, weird things are taking place in Michigan. Donald Trump has refused to concede, of course, and one conspiracy theory after another are being basically whipped up out of thin air. He's getting his court cases. Those cases are being lost or won in a way that doesn't necessarily give him really anything real. And in Michigan, he's trying to basically push the results. Ultimately, what he wants is either electors to basically fudge the results and get this thing thrown into the House of Representatives, or some kind of, hand of God to pull him out like from the Supreme Court in a Gore v. Bush type of scenario. They're pulling out all the stops. Now, Wayne County Board of Canvassers initially deadlocked 2-2. 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. And with this deadlock, basically, they refused to certify the results. Now, of course, there was all sorts of hysteria that came about this, with a belligerent public very angry and very pissed off that they are basically undermining the results. It was even floated that what if we just, certify the other results and leave out Wayne County? Now, it's interesting that they would say that. Joe Biden won Michigan by more than 148,000 votes. However, he was able to get 322,000 votes more than Trump from Wayne County. Meaning Wayne County is a Democratic stronghold. And if Wayne County is delegitimized or removed, it's possible that Biden could lose the state. Keep in mind, you have Democrats who do very well in like these kind of population centers, these big cities. And so you would have something like Detroit, big city, large black population, which by itself is going to predispose it to being in the interest of backing Joe Biden. If you can remove it from the map, then Michigan could potentially go to Trump. No Democrat in the world is going to allow them to certify anything in Michigan without certifying everything in Michigan. So what ended up happening was that the 2-2 deadlock was broken. There was going to be an agreement for an audit for some of the oddities in Detroit, but basically it went through. The canvassers allowed it to go through. All of a sudden, in a flash, in an immediate, the 2 Republicans who said, yes, we would allow this to go through, we would allow the results to be certified, turned on the dime and said, we rescind our certification. We rescind our certification. This is either politics or stupidity. And I want to have a conversation because it could be a little bit of both. I suggest that it's politics, that it's theatrics, all based on this notion of not wanting to concede with a political party that is kind of torn by whether or not how craven and how low life they'll be in regards to flagrantly backing a claim that doesn't necessarily have a there to. Look, if you have evidence, show it. If you have the goods, show it. Give it to the news. Give it to the prosecutors. Give it to the courts. Give it to the edifices that would allow you to make that case and make that case known to be true. And at this point, this stuff is fluff. This is a president that just doesn't want to concede. He doesn't want to be humiliated, shuffling his way out with his box, fired by America. I want to delve into the story a little bit just to give the latest backstory behind this notion of trying to rescind their votes. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you the opportunity for allowing me to do so. The story was interesting. Bizarre, but interesting. The President of the United States was able to up his tally by like 10.1 million votes. If there were no mail-in ballots this year, meaning if this was a typical election year, like every other election year, it is very possible that the low energy for Joe Biden would have lost Joe Biden that race. Why do I say that? Because Donald Trump was able to expand his numbers with blacks, Hispanics, and oddly enough, the white working class, he was able to, for the most part, maintain it. So the coalition didn't entirely fall apart, even though he might have lost elements or aspects. Biden was able to increase the vote tally over Hillary Clinton, if I'm not mistaken, by over 12 million votes. And again, it depends on where those votes are. If all of those votes are in California like they were for Hillary Clinton, well, she loses that race. If you get some of those votes in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, then you may get enough to win it in the way that Joe Biden has. The electors, or the Board of Canvassing members, the GOP members, after balking, Trump sends out a tweet about them having courage and, of course, puts out frivolous, lying claims. Now, the interesting part to this, though, is after the agreement for the audit, this went away. At least we thought. Donald Trump has a conversation with one of the Board of Canvassers. Has a conversation. Now, she says that the conversation was just to see if she was okay. That it wasn't trying to push him or pressure her to vote this way or that way, but it was mostly just to make sure she was all right. Now, interestingly enough, they come back and they make the case to say that the reason that they rescinded or the reason that they went along with it is because they were being threatened. They say we were being threatened. We were being called racist. They were saying all of these things about us. There were threats about us being doxxed. The racism threats came because the county and the area to which they wanted to not allow was basically a black community. It was a largely African American community. And so that's kind of where that was coming from. But beyond that, the Washington Post asked if she had spoken, Palmer, to Trump. She said, "It is hard for me to describe. There was lots of adrenaline and stress going on. There were general comments about different states, but we really didn't discuss the details of the certification. It was not pressure. It was genuine concern for my safety." Again, it's the message in the presentation. Kind of like the case with Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch. Does he really have to say anything? The moment that you're standing there looking at her, she understands why you are standing there looking at her, even if you are whistling Dixie. She gets it. You're not whistling Dixie for the sake of whistling Dixie. You're whistling Dixie because you're like, keep my wife out of prison. In this very specific case, she clearly knows what Trump wants. Clearly knows. Everybody knows what Trump wants. Trump wants the GOP to back him in this basic coup attempt to undermine the results of the election itself in similar ways to which they tried to undermine the election results when he took office. I would imagine that people have qualms with going all the way in, but in this case, they kept saying there were abnormalities. Those abnormalities should have got sussed out in an audit. They were okay with it. Then all of a sudden they said we were feeling threatened, so we went along with it. The latest in this, though, is regardless of whether they felt threatened or not, the fact that they put it through, well, the deadline has already passed. Meaning, there is no legal mechanism to rescind a result. There's no legal mechanism for that. I mean, at the end of the day, the moment that it was through, the deadline was the 17th. And so the moment that they certified it, it was certified. There are additional steps that need to take place. But for example, the next process in this step is the Board of Canvassers to meet and certify the results. Let's see. Yeah, this stuff is usually a formality. Like, this stuff is usually just a mechanism that takes place in this kind of automatic fashion because one candidate typically concedes. But in the case where a president wants to gum up the works, just because it seems like it's automatic doesn't mean it is. And there are interlocking mechanisms along the way that the people can screw along with. One of those was what you just saw for the Wayne County canvassers. In this very specific instance, it's unclear what is going to take place next. But what is clear is there is no legal recourse to rescind a certification. That certification is through. Now, the question that you need to ask is, did they know that? Did they know that? Why am I saying that? If your name is Lindsey Graham, or for that matter, your name is Mitch McConnell, you strongly believe Donald Trump lost the race. In fact, there's probably not even a doubt in your mind. Trump lost. But you can't really say that, especially if you're going to have future races coming up, especially if you're going to still be in politics, be it local or be it on a national or state level. The people who don't back Trump will be remembered every bit as much as the people who didn't back Sanders or was duplicitous to Sanders. Mark my words. When Tulsi Gabbard backed Sanders, a lot of people were able to give her the benefit of the doubt. But that by itself, at least I was. You backed my guy when nobody else would. Well, you have a situation where Donald Trump is clearly a political juggernaut, despite the fact that he lost the race. He still got, 70-something million votes. He got a huge number of votes. He was able to up his tally. And if you're able to command that much of the political space, whether you win or not, that support still marinates. That support is not going to dissipate and vanish overnight. The allies, the people who back Trump, are probably going to be known, especially by the people who are in those population centers that was pushing for Trump. Meaning, whether you dislike Trump or not, whether you're a classical Republican or not, whether you realize that there was no malfeasance or not, you will still lean in a certain direction. You will still act in a particular way because the optics of the public and that public's perception of you in regards to where you stood matters that much. By the same token, you still get the bang for your buck by doing something that is impossible to do. Meaning, your cake and eat it too. Yes, I'm gonna push back on this. Okay, I'm gonna rescind it and we're just gonna put it through certified. Now, the question is, did the people know the moment that they certified it, it was done? And if they knew that, then them coming out saying we would like to rescind our certification is entirely a face-saving mechanism. Look, I could be wrong. And yes, this is somewhat of a cynical portrayal in thinking of these guys as theatrics. But if these are indeed political actors, and if at some point they will get into politics, I mean, after all, they're being called GOP, that's associated with it. Yeah, they may have an affiliation and they may have coattails that require a certain degree of allegiance. That allegiance can be shown by doing something despite not really doing it. Meaning, the results are certified. Yes, we're going to balk and we're going to say we're going to rescind it. But at that point, it's too late. There is no legal recourse. It's known that there's no legal recourse. It's just saying that theatrics. And on top of saying there's no legal recourse, you then say, well, the reason I did it was because I was threatened. Now, people might have said very bad things about you, fair enough. And like I said, doxing everything else, yes, fair enough. But I'm just making the point that it's more of a face-saving mechanism for people who didn't want to set themselves on fire for the likes of Donald Trump. I could be wrong, but that's my thinking. But I'm not going to keep it. I just thought this was interesting. I mean, people were paying attention and all of these people were saying, screaming about, oh, it's fraud, it's cheating, etc. Our electoral system is horrendously non-transparent. And that non-transparency breeds a certain degree of distrust. Warranted, by the way, distrust. The political people or party members have the capacity to fix our electoral system. They just don't do it. They have the capacity to ensure that each and every American can vote. They just don't do it. These are things that seem to be left holes in the system for particular actors to screw with those in one election or the next. Meaning it's almost as if the electoral system remains porous for that very point of potential manipulation. That said, we're stuck in this kind of quagmire where you still need to show it. And you can't go along with this Russiagate nonsense. Meaning people screaming that Trump was working with the Russians. It's like, where's your evidence? It was like, well, we need to dig for that. Looks similar. this looks similar. I'm going to leave this here. They love Trump only because they love racists, not one other reason. MC Jackport. I don't think that's entirely true. I do think look, clearly the answer is yes in some part. Well, that's a flat fact. I mean, it has to be as a flat fact on some part. Trump fully understands him not attacking Nazis is basically him protecting an aspect of his base. By the same token, there are a lot of people who hate this political system. Hate it. Hate it with a passion. Because they realize it is screwing them over royally. It is taking advantage of them. They're being exploited from a standpoint of company and big business that works arm in arm with government. Even the trade deals that are being passed, you don't even get to see those trade deals. You honestly believe that Obama was working in your best interests within the context of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the guy that threw his body protecting Wall Street while letting homeowners go bust? You honestly believe that guy's looking out for your best interests? He is not. Of course he's not. Of course he's not. I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is that, yes, there are some people who are racist, but there are other people who actually just hate our political system and wants to see that political system burn. And having Donald Trump be belligerent, having the media having to deal with it, having Donald Trump attacking world leaders on this notion of globalism and everything else, despite all of his vagaries, he's a blunt object. And as a blunt object, you may have some people supporting that blunt object in the way that it hits and attacks everything around it, purely for the sake of letting it burn. I don't think everyone has to be racist to back Trump. People back politicians for all sorts of reasons. I mean, for fuck's sake, I didn't want Biden to win this race. By the same token, I didn't want Trump to win it either. Meaning, I was in this weird spot, or I'm in this weird spot of having a certain satisfaction that Trump lost, but having no joy that Joe Biden won. And if Donald Trump won, I would have felt the exact same way, just in the opposite direction. Look, America's an afterthought. And both of these parties are looking out for their own constituents, and their constituents being whatever size of the oligarchy that is putting money and dollars in their G-strings. That's the truth of it. That's the truth of it. MC Jackpunk. I'm not terrified like you. Terrified. I don't know who's terrified. Paul BSOG. Cheers. Stay strong. Robert. Right on, Robert. I hate both parties, but Trump black vote went up. They Hicks. Yeah, it went up. It went up. If I'm not mistaken, LGBTQ also went up. Fascinating, right? That's what I mean. If the Democratic vote tally this year stayed flat, they probably would have lost. But think about what that means. Donald Trump, right now, COVID deaths are going to hit 2,000 soon. It's potentially going to go higher than that. Because the fact of the matter is, it doesn't seem like anybody has any kind of coordinated federal response to deal with it. So it's basically a wildfire that people just watch burn. In this case, though, the things that are burning aren't tree branches. They're human beings that are basically being torn asunder. Even if they don't die, the mental issues, the physical issues that go for months after COVID-19, especially people with comorbidities. I mean, even people who are younger have been dying. You've had a larger number of people in the younger demographics that have been catching COVID-19. And when Easter, Thanksgiving and Christmas come, oh God. Oh God. I guess the point is, that number seems like it's going to get far worse before it gets anywhere near better. And it doesn't necessarily seem there's even a response at this point. The President of the United States is ferociously tweeting, angry at the American public, and because of such, lets it burn. Just lets it burn. I'm going to end it here. Like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you hit the like button, guys, and make sure you check your subscription. We've been having these kind of weird drop-offs, where there's a lot of, it seems like there were drop-offs. So just make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Only hit like if you like it. And I will see you guys a little bit later. Like, share, subscribe.